Okay, I've been waiting all day for this. I want to read. I want to get this down. So this is book number 1 from the book of Maccabees, the first book of Maccabees. I've been wanting to read this for the longest time, so let's do it. Chapter 1, Ptolemy defeats Antiochus. He visits Jerusalem and attempts to enter the temple. Now, when Philopater learned from those who returned that Antiochus had taken away the places which had been under his dominion, he gave orders to all his forces, both foot and horse, to march, and taking with him his sister Arsinoe, he proceeded as far as the parts about Raphia, where Antiochus and his army had pitched their camp. Let's see. Grotius has remarked that this book opens abruptly, as though it were part of some larger work, and this idea appears to be confirmed by an expression occurring at chapter 2:25. Ptolemy Philopater, king of Egypt, the fourth of that family in name, Antiochus, the great king of Syria, the son of Seleucus Callinicus, namely Tyre, Seleucia, Ptolemais, Abila, Gadara, Scytholepus, and other towns, as related by Polybus, a town on the southern border of the Holy Land. Polybus coins struck here are still extant. Oh, still in existence. Wow, that's cool. Book 1. But one Theodotus, intending to complete a treacherous design which he had, took the best of the arms which Ptolemy had formerly entrusted to him, and approached by night to Ptolemy's tent, as intending himself alone to kill him, and thereby to put an end to the war. But Dositheus, called the son of Drumalus, by birth a Jew, but one who afterwards forsook his religion and estranged himself from the ordinances of his forefathers, taking Ptolemy out of the way, caused a certain obscure person to lodge there in his stead, who accordingly received that punishment which was intended for the other. Now, when a sharp battle took place, and success seemed rather to favor Antiochus, Arsinoe, that's the sister, went frequently up and down among the troops and exhorted them with lamentation and tears, having her hair in disorder, to fight manfully for themselves and for their children and wives, promising to give to everyone, if they conquered, to what? Oh no, I hate it when they do that. To something, I don't know. They just blocked that page. Wonder why they did that. That's weird. Anyways, we won't know what it was, because this is page 4 here. About the holy place, he took a design to manage matters so that he might enter into the temple itself. But when they said that this could not be done, because it was not lawful for even persons of their own nation to enter into that place, no, not for all the priests themselves, but only for the superior of them all, the high priest, and even for him but once in a year, he would by no means be dissuaded. Someone's going to be going into a place he shouldn't be going into. Let's see who it is. And when the law to this effect was read in his presence, he would by no means cease offering himself, but said that he must go in. And even if they are deprived of that honor, I must not be so deprived. He asked also this question: why none of those who attended any other temples hindered him from entering into them? And when a certain person inadvertently said that this was an unlucky fiction of his, he answered, now that this has been done, from whatever cause it may, why shall I not enter at all events, whether you will or no? Then the priests fell down in their holy garments and prayed the Most High God to assist them in the present distress and to avert the violence of him who was making this wicked attempt. Okay, so here's the little notes here. Here is meant the inmost recess of the Holy of Holies. And besides these ordinances of the law of Moses, Antiochus the Great, in his benevolence toward the Jews, had issued a public decree that no foreigner should enter into the temple without their will and permission. Joseph, Ant 12. The sense appears somewhat doubtful. Grotius would read, Crutwell translates the passage that it was monstrously wicked. The sense seems to be that this very thing, his entering into other temples, was improperly done, or that they minded their business badly in thus allowing him to go in. So let's see, what did it say? So this wicked attempt upon them, and they filled the temple with cries and tears. And they which were left in the city were troubled and came running, as thinking the affair to be something new and wholly unexpected. Hey, a mosquito in here. Where am I? The virgins also, who were shut up in private chambers, together with their mothers, rushed out, and sprinkling ashes and dust upon their heads, filled the streets with groans and lamentations. And those who lately were adorned in wedding garments, leaving their marriage chambers and that decent modesty which belonged to them, ran about the city together in disorder. And as for the young children, both their mothers and nurses who had charge of them left these, one in one place, one in another, some in their houses, others in the streets, without any regard, and went in troops together to the Most High Temple. And various was the prayer of the whole company on account of his unhallowed attempt. Together with these were the bolder citizens who would not bear his persevering in the business, and his resolution to effect his purpose, and crying out that they must arm themselves for this onset and courageously die for the law of their fathers, they occasioned no small stir in the place. And having with difficulty been dissuaded by the seniors and elders, at last, these also retired to the same station of prayer. As for the multitude, they continued as before in the same manner, praying, while the elders who were about the king tried in many ways to divert his proud mind from his intended purpose. But he, in a haughty manner and disdaining all their persuasions, began now to make an advance, as thinking to accomplish his declared design, which when his attendants perceived, even they turned to join with our people in calling upon him who has all power, to give help in the present distress, and not to overlook this lawless and proud behavior. You know, that's probably a good idea. We should probably all be praying for what's going on in our world, you know, overlook this lawless and proud behavior. Now, from the reiterated and vehement cry of the multitude united together, there was an inconceivable sort of noise, for one might suppose that not the men alone, but the very walls and the ground echoed again, as if the whole multitude at that time chose to die rather than that place should be profaned. So it sounds like that, well, let's find out. We'll find out. Chapter 2, the prayer of Simon. Ptolemy is baffled, his cruel edicts. Thereupon the high priest Simon, bowing his knees before the holy place and spreading out his hands in reverent form, made the following prayer. O Lord, Lord King of heaven and ruler of all creation, holy in the holies, the only governor, the Almighty, give ear unto us who are afflicted by this wicked and profane man, puffed up with insolence and strength. For thou hast created all things and rulest all things. Thou art the righteous governor and judgest those who do anything in insolence and pride. Thou didst destroy them who in former times worked wickedness, among whom were the giants, trusting in their strength and courage, by bringing upon them an immense mass of water. Thou didst burn up with fire and brimstone the Sodomites, Sodom and Gomorrah, workers of wickedness who were infamous for their iniquities, and madest them an example to those who should come afterward. Thou showest thy dominion by trying the vaunting bold Pharaoh, who had enslaved thy people, the holy Israel, with many and various kinds of punishment, whereby thou madest known thy great strength. And when he pursued them with his chariots and the multitude of his troops, thou didst drown him in the depth of the sea, and didst carry through unhurt those who trusted on thee, the Lord of the whole creation, who also, after they had experienced the works of thy hands, praised thee, the Almighty. Thou, O King, when thou hadst created the boundless and immeasurable earth, immeasurable, didst choose this city and sanctify this place for thy name, who standest in need of nothing, and hast glorified it by thy magnificent presence, and compacted it for the glory of thy great and honorable name. And out of love to the house of Israel, thou promised truly that if we should fall off from thee, and distress should overtake us, and we should come to this place and pray, thou wouldst hear our supplication, and indeed thou art faithful and true. And since when our fathers were often in affliction, thou hast afforded them assistance in their low estate, and hast delivered them out of great dangers. Lo, now, O Holy King, we are afflicted on account of our many and great sins. We are also becoming subject to our enemies, and are fainting in our infirmities. Now in our calamity, this insolent and profane man endeavors to dishonor this holy place, which has been set apart upon earth for thy glorious name. Thy habitation, indeed, is the heaven of heaven, unapproachable by men. But because thou hast been pleased to place thy glory among the people Israel, thou hast sanctified this place. Do not thou take vengeance on us by the pollution of these men, neither do thou punish us by their profanation, that the transgressors may not glory in their fury, nor rejoice in the pride of their tongue, saying, we have trodden down the house of sanctification, as the houses of abominations are trodden down. Blot out our sins and disperse our errors, and send the light of thy mercy upon us at this hour. Let thy mercies prevent us quickly, and put praises into the mouth of us who are fallen down, and become contrite in our souls by giving us peace. Hear the all-seeing God, who is before all things, holy in the holies, heard our righteous supplication, and chastised him who was greatly exalted with insolence and boldness, shaking him this way and that way as a reed is shaken by the wind, so that he lay upon the floor without the power of exertion, and paralyzed in his limbs, and not even able to speak, being overtaken with a just judgment. Whereupon his friends and bodyguards, when they saw that speedy and sharp punishment which had overtaken him, being afraid lest he should even die, struck with overwhelming fear, they quickly drew him out of that place. So it looks to me like somebody was trying to go into the Holy Holies, and then they had an episode of, I don't know, epilepsy or something, seizures. But when after some time he had recovered himself, his punishment did not bring him to repentance. Wow. But he departed with bitter threatenings, so that when he came into Egypt, he both grew worse in wickedness, and upon conversing with his drinking companions and such friends as were estranged from all which was good, of whom we have already spoken, he not only persevered in countless instances of debauchery, but proceeded farther to that degree of insolence that he raised reproaches against us in those places, and that many of our friends, carefully watching the king's purpose, did themselves also follow his will. Now he proposed to bring forward publicly an accusation against our nation, and raising up a pillar at the door of his court, he engraved on it an inscription, that none who did not sacrifice in their temples should enter, and that all the Jews should be brought to the lowest registry and to the condition of slaves, and that those who refuse to comply, whoa, this is reminding me of right now what's happening with the shots. Those who refuse to comply should be seized upon by force and put to death. Whoa. That those also who are registered shall have a mark imprinted by fire upon their body. Wow. They were branding the people. Hello. namely an ivy leaf. Okay, let me see. This does not appear in any previous part of the book. Such as we now possess it, it therefore furnishes an additional reason for our thinking with Grotius that that which remains is only a portion of a larger work. Yeah, see the note on chapter 1. Historians, as Polybius, Justin, and Strabo, speak of the systematic luxury and licentiousness of this monarch, especially at this period, which Grotius translate relatio plebem. See his note, compare chapter 7:22. Compare 3rd Maccabees. I don't know if that means verses, VI 7. From the horror with which the Jews appear to regard this threat may be judged the falsehood of the story, which is mentioned by Plutarch and alluded to by Tacitus, Histor V5, that they were supposed by some writers to be worshippers of Bacchus. Oh, like baccalaureate, bachelor degree, Bacchus, the god of wine and debauchery. Something assistance. They also abhorred those of themselves who had apostatized, and deemed them the enemies of their nation. Get in, mosquito, get away. And excluded them from common intercourse and the advantages of social life. Whoa, that's like social distancing, or what's the word? Banning you or forbidding you to go have social life. The common intercourse, like you can't even be around other people. Chapter 3. Ptolemy's persecuting edict against the Jews. Now, as soon as this wicked man was informed of these things, he was so enraged as not only to be very angry with those Jews who dwelt at Alexandria, but also he became a more grievous adversary to those who dwelt in the country, and commanded to make haste and gather them all together and put them to death in the most cruel manner. Paper straws, I don't like them. While these things were in agitation, a malignant report went forth against our nation from those men who were consenting to this wicked project, a handle being given for this their design upon the complaint of those apostates that we forbade them to communicate with us in our ordinances, but the Jews continued to preserve unchangeable their goodwill and fidelity to their kings. But as they worshiped God and ordered their conversation according to his law, they made a separation in some points and rejections of some others. Several of these national peculiarities are brought forward in disparagement of the Jews by the historian Diodorus Siculus. Others are mentioned, and Titicus has left on record some curious particulars exhibiting the imperfect knowledge. Okay, so now, on which account to some persons they appeared odious, yet by adorning their conversation with the works of the righteous, they had become well approved by all men. But those foreigners paid no regard to that character, for good deeds of the nation everywhere so much spoken of, but made a great noise about the separation which they made from others in their ways of worship and sorts of food, and said that these men were not sociable, either with the king or with his armies, but that they were disaffected and greatly opposed to the success of their affairs, so that they covered them with no small blame. Now that sounds like something big. No small blame means something big. Now those Greeks who were in the city and were in no wise injured by them, observing the unexpected disturbance which was raised and unforeseen concourses of people about these men, were indeed unable to help them. For the constitution, did you hear that? Of the government was tyrannical. Whoa. Let's read these notes. The loose notions, even the polished Romans they had respecting a people lately subdued by their own generals, doing that which St. Paul recommends to the Christian converts at Colossians 4:5 and 1 Thessalonians 4:12, walk honestly in wisdom towards them that are without. That's deep. Namely, the Macedonians settled at Alexandria. It is remembered that the same charge was made by Haman, the Agagite, when he persuaded King Ahasuerus to issue an edict for a general massacre of the Jews throughout his dominions. There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them, to allow them. See also the apocryphal editions of 8:5. See likewise Josephus's justification of his nation in these particulars in his Antiquities. What is that? 10:16? Yeah, 10. Which contends to mean here no more than a simple edict. So it looks like they were putting out some government edict. So they used exhortations in their favor and were very sorry for them, and thought these things would have a change, for that so vast a body of men who had done no harm through ignorance would not be thus overlooked by their God. And besides, certain of their neighbors and friends and partisans called some of them together privately and plighted their faith to protect them and to use every endeavor for their assistance. Ptolemy then, as exulting in his present prosperity and having no regard to the power of the Most High God, but supposing that he should continue always in the same design, wrote this epistle against them. King Ptolemy, Philopater, to his commanders and soldiers in Egypt and elsewhere, joy and health. I myself am in health, and our affairs are also prosperous. Since our last expedition into Asia, as you yourselves know, has through the unforeseen assistance of the gods to us, and by our own fortitude, justly been brought to a happy conclusion. We determined to treat the nations which inhabit Colossyria, and Phoenice, not with force of arms, but to nurse them with kindness and great tenderness, and willingly to do them good. And having bestowed great revenues on the temples of the several cities, we proceeded as far as Jerusalem and went up with an intention to honor the temple of these wretches who will never leave off their madness. Whoa. Now those men in word took our coming thither kindly, but in their behavior insincerely. For when we intended to go into their holy place and to honor it with excellent and most noble gifts, they carried away with their ancient pride, prohibited our entrance, not having experienced our power by reason of that kindness which we show to all mankind, and making manifest their ill will towards us, and being the only nation in the world which is insolent towards kings and towards its own benefactors. They are not willing to bear anything kindly. Now we, being moved by the madness of these men, though we had returned home with victory and had come back into Egypt with the testimony of having met all nations with kindness, having done that which was fit for us to do. And in the midst of these things, we have declared to all men our forgiveness of their nation, and on account of their assistance in war and the innumerable affairs with which from the beginning we innocently entrusted them, we earnestly endeavored to change them, and were willing to bestow on them the privileges of citizens of Alexandria, and to make them companions of our priests for the time being. But we're going to get them out of here. But they, taking this offer in a contrary light, and by that wicked habit which is natural to them, rejecting the good and inclining perpetually to that which is evil, did not only turn away from that inestimable privilege, but abhorred both publicly and privately those few amongst themselves who were favorably disposed towards us, ever expecting that by their infamous course of procedure we should speedily change our just measures. Wherefore, we both being well assured by by certain signs that these men do in every way bear us ill will, and providing lest upon any sudden trouble which may come upon us hereafter, we should have these wicked wretches behind our backs as traitors and barbarous enemies, have given order that as soon as this epistle is brought to you, the same hour you seize on these people who are dwelling among you, together with their wives and children, with insult and vexation, and send them to us every way secured in iron bonds, that they may suffer an inevitable and ignominious death. Ignominious death. Oh, we better read some of these. Let's read some of these little notes here. Let me go back and see what that says. As several kings had done before, according to the account given by Josephus. Okay. There's a fly in here and I'm going to have to kill it. Will not behave themselves kindly, or will not bear anything which is fair and equitable to be opposed. See the same word occurring again. Josephus relates that Ptolemy Lagus entrusted several of his garrisons to the keeping of the Jews. So let's see, they're trying to give him a bad edict here. Grotius proposes a preferable reading, the ancient of perpetual rights of our religion. It is too notorious that the Jews universally bore a bad name among surrounding nations, and the strange notions which even the learned and polished Romans could allow themselves to entertain respecting their origin and customs may be seen in Tacitus. There is a remarkable similarity between this epistle of Ptolemy and that of Artaxerxes, written at the suggestion of Haman, which is mentioned at Esther 3:13 and is given at length in the apocryphal part of that book. Was it 13:4-7? So let's see. Did I read this? Oh, here, let's read this. As is suitable to the disaffected, for when once all these have been brought to punishment together, we suppose that during the rest of our time, our affairs will be perfectly established, in security and the best condition. And whosoever shall conceal any individual of the Jews, from an old man to an infant, and the very sucklings, he and all his family shall be racked to death with the severest tortures. Wow. But whosoever is willing to discover any of them, he shall therefore obtain the substance of him who fell under punishment, and 2,000 drachma of silver. Wow. Besides, out of the royal treasury. Whoa. Sheesh, they're bribing people now to turn in the Jews. This is in the book of Maccabees. Wow. He shall also be made free and shall be crowned. Whoa. So you find me a Jew and you're going to be getting that 2,000 drachma. You get to have the substance of him who fell under the punishment. You're going to be made free. You shall be crowned. Wow. Look at all these perks. Kind of sounds a little bit like today. You're going to get to buy and sell. You get to go in the stores. You're going to get to go to games and concerts. But you know, those unvaccinated ones, oh, you better rat those ones out. This is kind of like right here. And every place where a concealed unvaccinated person, a concealed Jew shall be by any means caught, let it be made impassable and be burned with fire, and it shall be rendered wholly useless to every mortal being for all time to come. The form then of that epistle was to this effect. Let me read this here. This custom, which has more or less obtained among both ancient and modern nations, appears to be recognized in the Old Testament, 2 Samuel. That's a 10. Okay, so that's a 5 and a 1. So it's 16:3-4, where David confiscates the property of Mephibosheth and gives it to his accuser Ziba. Assuming the Hebrew drachma to be equal to the Roman, namely 1/8 of an ounce, this weight of silver will amount to about 57 pounds sterling. Asleep. So, excuse me. So in the letter of Artaxerxes, recorded in the apocryphal part of the book of Esther, it is commanded that every place which disobeys the king's command be made. Oh, great. It's in Greek. Can't read it. The expression abaros, in the sense of unentered, unprofane, is applied to the temple of Jerusalem by Josephus. Compare the note. Okay, well, this is page 18, and it's chapter 4. And I'm going to stop because I'm getting tired. Night, night.